They called us monsters, but for one day a little girl needed us to be her family. So the Serpent's Hand rode to school. The sound of 100 Harleys is a prayer to some and a warning to others. In Maple Creek, it's always been the latter. For 15 years, I've been the president of the Serpent's Hand MC. My name's Frank, but everyone calls me Preacher. Not because I'm religious, but because once I start talking, it's hard to get me to stop. We're not bad men, not really. We keep to ourselves, run a custom bike shop that brings in more money than most folks in this town see in a year, and we handle our own problems. But a leather vest and a long beard can make people nervous. They see the patch on our back, not the men wearing it. They cross the street, they pull their kids closer, they whisper. We're the monsters that live on the edge of their perfect little postcard town. I was at the Greasy Spoon Diner, same as every Tuesday, finishing up some paperwork over a burnt coffee. I prefer working there. The clubhouse is too loud. As I walked out into the parking lot, squinting in the afternoon sun, I saw her, a kid, couldn't have been more than 12 or 13, standing a few feet from my bike. She was just staring at it. My bike, the Unforgiven, is my pride and joy, a custom-built beast of chrome and black steel. Most people are too scared to even look at it for long. But this girl, she was different. She had big, curious brown eyes and 2 braids that hung over her shoulders. She wasn't scared. She was mesmerized. I cleared my throat, not wanting to startle her. "Something I can help you with, kid?" She jumped a little, her eyes snapping up to meet mine. I saw a flicker of fear then, the kind I was used to, but it vanished as quickly as it came, replaced by a stubborn resolve. "Is this your motorcycle?" she asked, her voice quiet but clear. "She is," I rumbled, walking closer. "Been with me for a long time." "Ah," she took a small step back, clutching a worn-out backpack to her chest. "It's beautiful. It looks strong." I couldn't help but crack a small smile. Nobody had ever called my bike beautiful. "Strong she is. What's your name?" "Imani," she said. She looked from me to the patch on my vest and back to my eyes. She took a deep breath, like she was about to jump off a cliff. "I have a favor to ask. It's big." I folded my arms, my leather creaking. I was expecting a request for a picture, maybe an autograph from the town bogeyman. "I'm listening." Her words came out in a rush, a quiet torrent of courage. "My school is having a family showcase day next Friday. You're supposed to bring your family, and they, you know, show you off. Talk about how proud they are of you." She looked down at her scuffed sneakers. "I don't have anyone to bring." My gut clenched. I knew about the foster system in our county. It wasn't great. "I'm sorry to hear that, kid, but I'm not sure what that has to do with me." Imani's eyes met mine again, and this time they were shining with unshed tears. The determination in them nearly knocked me over. "I was wondering. I see you and your friends ride through town. You're all together. You ride together. You eat together. You look like a family. A big, loud, scary family. But a family." She swallowed hard, her voice dropping to a whisper. "So I wanted to ask, for just one day, can you be my family?" The request hung in the air between us, heavier than the humidity of a summer afternoon. Me? Her family? Us? The Serpent's Hand? The outcasts? The guys' mothers warned their daughters about. I stared at her, this small girl with the weight of the world in her eyes, asking a monster to come to her school and pretend to be proud of her. My mind was screaming a dozen different reasons to say no. It was insane. It was dangerous. It would bring a world of trouble down on us and on her. But my heart, the stubborn old engine in my chest, was telling me something else entirely. That night at the clubhouse, the air was thick with smoke and the smell of stale beer. I called a meeting. Every member of the Serpent's Hand was there, circling the big oak table. I told them about the girl. I told them her name was Imani. And then I told them what she asked. Silence. You could have heard a pin drop over the jukebox. 30 hardened men. Men who had seen and done things that would make your hair stand on end, just stared at me. I saw confusion, disbelief, even a few smirks. I expected laughter. I expected a hard no. I expected my VP, a mountain of a man we call Rec, to slam his fist on the table and tell me I'd finally gone soft. He was the hardest of us all, a man of few words and even fewer smiles. All eyes turned to him, waiting for his verdict. He stared at the table for a long, tense moment, his jaw tight. Then, slowly, he reached into the inner pocket of his vest and pulled out a worn, cracked leather wallet. He didn't pull out a weapon or a wad of cash. He carefully unfolded a faded, creased piece of paper and slid it into the middle of the table. It was a child's drawing, done in crayon. A little stick-figure girl with 2 braids, holding the hand of a giant bearded man next to a poorly drawn motorcycle. Rec looked up, his one good eye locking onto mine, and in a voice like grinding gravel, he said, "We're doing it, and we're doing it right." The drawing Rec laid down silenced any potential dissent. It was a picture his own estranged daughter had drawn for him years ago, before things went south. We all knew the story. We just never talked about it. Rec seeing a chance to be the father he couldn't be, even for a day. Well, that was a sermon more powerful than any I could ever preach. The vote was unanimous. The Serpent's Hand was going to school. But Rec was right. We weren't just going to show up. We were going to do it right. The next few days were a blur of activity, unlike anything the clubhouse had ever seen. The first step was research. Rec and I met Imani at the diner again the next day. We bought her a milkshake and grilled her, not like cops, but like overly intense, tattooed uncles. What's your favorite subject? Art. What's your best project this year? A clay sculpture of a dragon. What do your teachers say about you? That I'm quiet, but I work hard. We scribbled notes on greasy napkins like we were planning a cross-country run. A few of the other guys sat in a nearby booth pretending not to listen, but I could see them straining to catch every word. The second step was preparation. The sound of wrenches and polished rags replaced the usual roar of the jukebox. Chrome gleamed so bright it hurt to look at. Engines were tuned to a perfect synchronized rumble. We weren't just cleaning bikes, we were polishing our armor. We were going into a battlefield we didn't understand, and our rides were our banners. Then came the discussion about our own appearance. Tiny, our 7-foot-tall sergeant-at-arms, actually suggested we buy new shirts. Not vests, just clean, black t-shirts. He was shouted down, of course. The vest, our cut, stays on. It's our skin. But a mandate went out. Every cut was to be washed, every patch straightened, every beard combed. We were going to be the cleanest, most intimidating group of monsters that Maple Creek Middle School had ever seen. The morning of the family showcase, the air at the clubhouse was electric. It wasn't the usual chaotic energy before a long ride. It was nervous. It was focused. Men who would ride head-on into a bar brawl without flinching were anxiously checking their reflections in the chrome of their gas tanks. Rex stood by my bike, running a cloth over an already spotless fender. He hadn't said more than 5 words all morning. He didn't need to. I threw a leg over the Unforgiven and looked at the 30 men assembled behind me. My family. "All right," I barked. "Let's go make a little girl proud." The ride to the school was a parade. We rode in a tight 2x2 formation, a rolling thunder that shook the windows of the quaint storefronts on Main Street. People came out of shops pointing, their faces a mixture of fear and bewilderment. They were used to seeing us on the highway, a fleeting roar on the edge of their world. But seeing us ride slowly, deliberately, through the heart of their town, heading towards the one place they held most sacred, their children's school, was something else entirely. It was an invasion. We turned onto the street where the school was located. The scene was exactly as you'd imagine. Minivans, SUVs, parents in sensible shoes, holding hands with their smiling kids. And then there was us, a river of black leather and steel pouring into their pastel-colored world. I led the pack into the parking lot, finding a long, empty stretch of curb. With a single hand signal, 30 engines were cut simultaneously. The sudden, deafening silence was more jarring than the noise had been. We dismounted as one, the sound of our boots on the asphalt like a drumbeat. Parents froze, pulling their children behind them. Kids stared, their eyes wide with a thrilling kind of terror. I scanned the crowd near the school entrance, my heart pounding against my ribs. and then I saw her. Imani. She was standing by herself near the steps, clutching the straps of her backpack, looking so small I thought she might disappear. Her eyes found mine, and for a second I saw a flicker of a smile. I took a step forward, ready to call her name, ready to cross the invisible line between our world and hers. But before I could, the main doors of the school burst open. A stern-faced woman in a grey pantsuit, Principal Thompson, I presumed, marched towards us. She wasn't alone. Flanking her were two of Maple Creek's finest, Sheriff Brody and his deputy, their hands resting uneasily on their holstered weapons. They stopped about 20 feet away, forming a blockade. Thompson raised a megaphone, her voice trembling slightly, but amplified to a harsh command that echoed across the silent parking lot. "This is private property. You and your gang are not welcome here. Turn around and leave immediately, or you will all be arrested for trespassing." A tense silence fell over the parking lot. My men bristled, their hands balling into fists. It would have been easy to meet her threat with our own. Easy to rev the engines, to shout back, to be the monsters she thought we were. But I looked past her, past the nervous cops, and saw Imani. Her face had crumpled, her brief moment of hope dissolving into the familiar pain of disappointment. That look on her face killed any anger I had. It was replaced by a cold, hard resolve. I held up a hand, a silent command for my brothers to stand down. I took a slow step forward, my boots scraping on the asphalt. I stopped a respectful distance from the principal. "Ma'am," I said, my voice calm and low, making her lean in slightly to hear. "My name is Frank. There's been a misunderstanding. We aren't trespassing." I reached into my own vest pocket, not for a weapon, but for the greasy napkin from the diner. I carefully unfolded it. "We are the invited guests of one of your students, Imani. We're her family for the showcase." Principal Thompson scoffed, a disbelieving little sound. "Her family? That's absurd. You're a biker gang." "We're a motorcycle club," I corrected gently. "And today, we're whatever she needs us to be. We know she likes art class, that her best project was a clay dragon, and that Mrs. Gable says she has a powerful imagination. We're here to talk about how proud we are of her." I held up the napkin. We took notes. Sheriff Brody shifted his weight, his eyes moving from me to the napkin, then to the small girl still frozen on the steps. He knew me. He knew we'd never caused real trouble within his town limits. He'd busted me for a bar fight 15 years ago, but he also knew I ran a legitimate business. He saw I wasn't posturing. I was pleading. The standoff might have lasted forever, a silent battle of wills between the town and its outcasts. But then, a small sound cut through the tension. The soft scuff of sneakers on pavement. All heads turned. Imani was walking off the steps. She walked right past the principal, past the cops, her eyes locked on me. She didn't slow down, her small legs moving with a purpose that defied everyone standing there. She walked straight into the space between our two armies, and, without a word, slid her small hand into my big, calloused one. She squeezed. It was the bravest thing I had ever seen. She looked up at Principal Thompson, her voice no longer a whisper. "They're with me," she said. "They're my family." The air went out of the confrontation. What could they do? Arrest a girl for holding her family's hand? Sheriff Brody let out a long breath and gave the principal a short, sharp nod. The blockade parted. I squeezed Imani's hand back, and with her leading the way, the Serpent's Hand walked into Maple Creek Middle School. The gymnasium was a cacophony of cheerful noise and bright colors, a world away from our clubhouse. We were like a pack of wolves in a petting zoo. Parents clutched their pearls, teachers looked on with wide, terrified eyes. We ignored them. We followed Imani to her art display. There it was, a fierce, beautiful dragon, sculpted from dark clay, its wings spread wide. It looked strong. When it was Imani's turn to present, she walked to the small stage, her dragon held carefully in her hands. The teacher asked, "And is your family here to support you, Imani?" Imani smiled and pointed to the front row, where 30 bikers sat silently on tiny plastic chairs meant for children. Rex stood up. He was a terrifying sight 6'5", scarred, and built like a brick wall. The microphone squeaked in his massive hand. He cleared his throat, the sound like rocks tumbling downhill. "She told us she made this dragon," he growled, his voice surprisingly steady. "She said it needed to look strong, so she made it strong." He looked from the dragon to Imani, and for the first time I saw his one good eye soften. "She's a good kid. She works hard. We're real proud of her." He sat down abruptly. That was it. That was the whole speech. But in the quiet gym, it was more powerful than a symphony. A few parents started to clap, then a few more. Soon, the whole room was applauding. After the presentations, something amazing happened. Kids, braver than their parents, started approaching us. They asked about our bikes, touched the patches on our vests. Tiny let a little boy with glasses sit on his shoulders. I saw Rec quietly explaining the mechanics of a V-twin engine to a group of spellbound fourth graders. We weren't monsters anymore. We were just Imani's family. As we walked out of the school an hour later, Principal Thompson stopped me. "Frank," she said, her tone completely changed. "I apologize. I misjudged you." I just nodded. Sheriff Brody was leaning against his car, and he tipped his hat to me as we passed. Imani walked us to our bikes. She hugged every single one of us. When she got to me, she held on tight. "Thank you," she whispered into my leather vest. "Any time, kid," I rumbled, patting her back. "You ever need a family, you know who to call." We mounted up, the chrome gleaming in the afternoon sun. I fired up the Unforgiven, and 30 more engines answered in a deafening chorus. But as we rode out of that parking lot, I knew the sound was different. To the people of Maple Creek, who stood watching us go, it was no longer a warning. And to the little girl with 2 braids waving from the school steps, I knew for the first time in her life, it was the sound of family, the sound of being proud, the sound of not being alone.